been a lot of talk about VR in the advertising, in the marketing space, but not many people understand what kind of impact it really has on audiences. It's great to say we want to do VR, so people spend money on it. And when I think of VR, when I first thought of what could I actually get out of VR, Hannibal Lecter came to mind. Because back in the day meaning a few years ago, when stereoscopic filmmaking was the big thing, I always wanted to see what effect, you know, those wrinkles on his eyes would actually have on me. And I was really hoping that movie would have been made in 3D. But now in VR, it's a different thing. It's, for example, I've seen 3D movies, and I'm sure you have, even on an IMAX screen. The difference with VR and with like a movie is, even in an IMAX screen, although the whole visuals envelope you, you have a physical distance between the seats and between the screen. In VR, you're in the movie. There is no physical there is no distance. You are in the movie. The psychological impact could be a lot more, and it's happening. And who better than Sir Anthony Hopkins to tell you?
What is the point of it? Get a couple of cheap thrills, some surprises, but it's not enough. It's not about giving the guests what you think they want, and that's simple. Titillation, horror, elation. They're parlor tricks. The guests don't return for the obvious things we do, the garish things. They come back because of the subtleties, the details. They come back because they discover something they imagine no one had ever noticed before. Something they fall in love with. They're not looking for a story that tells them who they are. They already know who they are. They're here because they want a glimpse of who they could be.
I believe it's a very powerful message when you're using VR to do, to market a product or to tell a story or to do some kind of branding with VR. It's not about sticking a camera, which is a 360 camera, and capturing an environment. It's about getting people to probably aspire to your brand, to be someone different. And that's what you should probably take into account when you're creating VR campaigns or campaigns driven by VR. It's not just that we should, okay, we need to now put money into VR because it's the in thing to do right now. And probably that's where a lot of things are going wrong. We'll take a look at who's doing it well, and the best part, which I like, who's doing it wrong. And there are big brands right now who are doing it wrong. Many of them don't like the fact that I've actually dissected them down in public on LinkedIn forums, but it's there. So, hopefully it leads to change out here in a place like India. I call it Suicide in VR. It's actually the VR for PR piece done for the movie, I forget the name right now, but I think you might be knowing it, Suicide Squad. So they did a VR for PR piece. After it plays back, I'll tell you what's wrong with it. So I forget her name. I think Haley or Harley Quinn. Yes. So you get to be Harley Quinn in this VR for PR piece, and it all goes well. It's like you're slaying the bad guys left, right, and center. And somewhere around the 1 minute mark, the director thinks he should get creative, and he swings the camera around because the bad guy is coming from the left and the right. And what does that for you? What does that does to you is it will give you an instant headache because you could still be looking up front, and they have swung the camera around. So it's not anyone's fault probably, but I would believe there should be a little bit more research done when you're actually creating these pieces. Now, you probably as a marketer or as an ad agency thing depend on production companies, on prodcos. The funny part is that none of the production companies are actually geared, or at least most of them aren't, but they will not say no to taking on a project. So it's like, do you do VR? Yeah, I mean, we have a 360 camera that we shot this piece with, and yes, we can do VR, but it's a lot more than that. You can actually cause harm to people. You can physically cause harm to people. A bad film in a cinema is just a bad film. You can probably walk out. A bad VR piece when you're wearing a headset is going to give you at least a kind of like a little bit of a migraine, if not even worse, where people have physically fallen ill. And knowing the fact that VR can do that, you can actually use VR to turn it around, to engage an audience. So let's see what we can do. But everyone knows the one from the Matrix. I like using that. Like what if you die in the Matrix, do you die in real life? So putting a spin on that, if you fall in in VR, if you're playing a game, if you're wearing a headset, if you fall in VR in the game, do you actually fall in real life? Now that opens up an interesting question, because as a marketer, how much can you engage a person with? The guy knows he's on a flat floor. I mean, your brain knows you're on a flat floor. But because it's so powerful, it can actually control your whole limbic system, your whole reflexes, and you believe you're in another world. It's a powerful message for a marketer or an advertiser to use this, not to make him fall, but so it's been happening all over the place. This is from the Sony film The Walk. It was done. Just another brief clip out here where the girl loses it instantly.
For PlayStation VR,
Yep.
based on the movie The Walk. So
All
left
right.
foot on the wire.
Left foot?
Yep.
All right.
This is on.
That's what she's seeing in the headset. Yeah. Well, so just to drive the point home, that
Wow.
VR is capable of doing that for you. Oh, that's chopped up, but I love this slide. It says, in this virtual world, marketers can pretend that consumers who ignore their brands in real life are somehow going to engage with it in VR. And that's exactly what's happening out here. There's so many marketing campaigns coming out just because someone in the marketing department said, oh, let's do VR. But that's not how it should be done. I like this thing. So, there's a feeling sometimes it's not quite deja vu. Deja vu is like, I've been to this place before or something like that. But the Portuguese have a very good word for this, saudade, which is actually, it's not deja vu. It's a kind of a yearning, a feeling for something that you wish you had. So now I've come in from Dubai, and let's say it does not rain there. We all know that it does not rain. And I do miss Mumbai. I was here in Mumbai for quite a number of years before, and I love Mumbai in the rains. I don't know, of course there is the bad side with the floods and all that, but just generally having chai on the road and that kind of thing, that's for me is Mumbai. So whenever it gets cloudy in Dubai, which it rarely ever does because it's like disastrous there, but when it gets cloudy, it's that feeling like it's Mumbai. It's like, like I'm just hoping rain would come in and I could go have some chai or take a break. So it's that kind of like saudade. It's like something, it's a yearning for something that you can't have, a person or a thing or a place, and VR can actually help create that. Because if I were to, film a place like this, like the Mumbai streets and the crowds out there, and if it was part of a brand campaign probably, somewhere outside, you would aim and you would get people out there to feel that connection with the place and hopefully with your brand message in there. So these are the things probably that you should be using. In VR now we've got haptics. Haptics is actually feedback that comes in from either from a hand controllers or a vest that you wear. We'll go into that in more details. But how could I use haptics to enhance that feeling of saudade? Yeah, I think you're trying to read that down. I've written triggers. So it's like basically the flow, the cobblestone road, the potholes. If you really were to walk around in VR and you've got room tracking now, you could give them that feeling of actually being on a street in Mumbai. You can build moods with it. Claustrophobia in VR, you don't really want to do that, but it's one of the areas that really works well. Trapped in an elevator, trapped in a room, because in VR you're looking around and you can actually feel that. In acting, generally in acting, there's a thing called, it's called emotional recall, emotional memory, emotional recall. So this is kind of a way of method acting, where to get the most out of a performance. Sometimes an actor is allowed to bring in something, a memento that will, like, let's say it's a sad scene, you can probably bring in a picture of a dog or a pet that he or she might have lost. And before you do the take, they look at that, and when they're doing the take, it enhances the realism of it all. So there is a trigger kind of thing, and that's a picture of the dog in the real thing. Now, can a VR scene be used as a trigger for happy memories, for sad memories, the message that you want to do? And these are the things that people are actually learning to start using now with VR pieces. Again, I keep harping on this, not sticking a camera with 5 GoPros on it and shooting around you and saying, oh, we did a VR piece because, hey, we did VR. Another thing, for example, if you've seen House of Cards, season 2 started off with episode 1, and the famous thing that Spacey does is he's always looking at the screen and talking to you. When in season 2, episode 1, he does not speak to the audience at all till the very end when he's looking in the mirror and he says, did you think I'd forgotten you? Perhaps you hoped I had. Well, welcome back. If you do something like this in a movie, it's cheesy. It's cheesy as hell. I mean, like, you can't have like a Hindi film where Shah Rukh Khan suddenly looks at the audience and says, like, should I go for her? That's like, it's cheesy. But in VR, it actually works. It somehow works in VR. It's like you are part of the scene. So one of the good examples I can give you of VR is by a studio based out in Montreal in Canada, Felix and Paul Studios. They did a film on Obama at the Yosemite National Park. So you get to be like 10 feet away from Obama, and it's really a nice thing. But Obama's of course not interested in you. He's talking to the park ranger and getting a tour of the whole place. And suddenly he looks at the camera, and remember, the camera is you. He looks at the camera probably casually. I don't know if it was deliberately done. And he says like, oh yeah, I love the thing behind, behind out there. And it's like he's talking to you, and you naturally turn around to see what he's talking about. So that's breaking the fourth wall. And in VR, it's a powerful thing if done right. So your script writers, your screenwriters in your agencies and in your marketing can actually use this subtly to drive home a message. It's a powerful medium.
Dancing to me, I think it's the truest form of expression. I feel a lot more comfortable expressing, especially hard emotions, through movement.
I was a dancer since I was 4 years old. I was tripping and I was falling, and I didn't even know what multiple sclerosis was. I still do some choreography now with other people with disabilities. Every day you have to just say to yourself, I can still do this.
With this dance, what I want to get across is just a feeling of transcendence. With the 360 camera, it gives the chance for someone to see what I see, experience what I experience. All right.
Uh-oh.
Have a surprise.
No. Am I ready for this?
Here we go.
Oh my God. I like the way your arms end. I dream sometimes and I see that. Thank you. It was beautiful.
I'm just grateful to be in this situation. Like, this is, how often do you get to do that?
So WNK did this for multiple sclerosis, and I think it drives the message home. So I think it's probably finding, VR is probably not a one-size-fits-all thing. Find a message or a brand or a product that you want to actually use and that VR can actually help with, and then scale it around that. And I believe that these are what should be done with VR as we go forward, because yes, you are going to have VR going mainstream. I was here last week again in Mumbai there was a conference for OTT, which is like over-the-top TV, and there's a big interest out there for VR. Why? Because people like Netflix has got Netflix VR, Hulu has got Hulu VR, Amazon Prime Video. People found out that there's a whole VR thing going to happen because of a job ad that they posted for engineers and stuff like that. So they're doing it. Meanwhile, in India, I think Hotstar dabbled with it a bit, but they've not done much with it. But it is going to explode. And the reason is, when you say VR, the first thing that comes to a marketer's mind is, of course, okay, so where's the audience? How do we consume it? And probably that's not the best way to go about it, because what many people don't know is, if you shoot something for VR, right now it is legacy compatible. You can actually cut out, when you shoot VR, you shoot about 6K in res. You can pull off a 2K resolution file, which is the director's cut, and that's standard work for an editor. So you can actually do a linear cut where people aren't looking around, obviously, and you can have that playback on your OTT platform, even on cinema if you like. I mean, you have to remember that Avatar, the movie, when it first released, was released only at HD in a cinema. Well, you've got like a 6K from where you can cut off a 2K thing. So what you have in effect is a campaign that, or a film that can play back on regular mobile or on TV, and when a device comes out, guess what? You've just saved yourself a lot of money, and you've got reviews of that thing because people will then see it in, in 360. So you got more kind of bang for your buck. It is completely legacy compatible, and so you should probably start producing VR content right now. How many of you have seen this one? It's not even traditional VR, but it hits home. It's like a very good brand product now.
Defenses, will they be able to get pressure? He slides and maneuvers within the pocket as well as anybody. Not a threat as a runner. 3rd and 1, and
I've got my wife Emily, my 4-year-old daughter Hadley. The hardest thing about this deployment, can't really explain it too well, just daddy's got to go to work again.
I have my fiance Danielle and my 2-year-old son Liam. They're just the world to me. It's tough for him to understand because he's used to me just being there.
I'm Corporal Trista Strouch. I've been on about 4 years now. Being away is pretty rough. I'm just worried about my son growing up and missing daily things that he does.
No car, no logo. Okay, the logo at the end, you don't even know it's Hyundai. But it's like really when you're thinking VR, there was no headset involved either. But yes, it was all around them. It was like being virtually present with your family. And when you look at something like, okay, the Super Bowl is what it is in the US, but out here it's the IPL. Someone says, let's do it in VR. What you get is someone saying, let's stick a camera out there and let's shoot the whole thing in 360. No, do it something like this. Copy it if need be, but I think generally you get the idea. Think creatively. And anyways, big brands are understanding now that they don't want to see their logo flashing 10 times a second. It's the brand message that goes with it. So, yep, I mean, this is the kind of content and this is the kind of VR experiences that
what
that
you
can
see
help.
in paintings is a window into someone's artistic interpretation of the world. In VR, you don't see that person's point of view through a window, you're inside of it.
And we're unconstrained by reality. We can take you to places like inside a drawing with Dear Angelica.
It was really important to me to create the feeling that these drawings were sort of arriving from nowhere.
You feel a lot more with VR.
So it does not have to be live action, it can be animation as well. It's a whole virtual world.
You live it, you feel the creation of it.
We begin with the daughter writing a letter to her mom.
Dear Angelica.
The tiny bed, the tiny girl, and the tiny television. All of the unsaid things between mother and daughter spill out of it.
I was inside of someone's mind.
I wanted to tell a story.
The person you love still being with you when they're gone.
I'm all right because I have all the stories that my mother told me.
Take my hand.
So this was a powerful piece done, and I think they had a brief shot there of Geena Davis, the actress. She voiced the girl's mother in the story. And she took off the headset and they really had a shot of her with tears down her eyes. I believe there was a connection in her real life with what the story is about. So, you're building a fantasy world, it's VR, it does not have to be a replica of our real world. You can go with it, you can run with it, but of course the message needs to be there and powerful enough to make a difference to people. So this is a standard thing that in normal photography or cinematography, it's called rack focusing. It's a bit technical side, but it's just for you guys to know when you give out a project to a production company, they're all making mistakes. So the more you know about it, the more you know what to look for. So standard cinematography terms like rack focus don't work in VR. It's going to give you a headache because let me see if I can play that again. All right, so you want to get to the girl's face, right? So you come in, you zoom in, it's blur, and then you suddenly go in and you rack focus to that. Now this can give you an instant headache in VR if you shoot like that, because you could still be staring at the little spider thing or the fence in front, and suddenly someone's rack focus. So these are things which people are learning in cinematography and filmmaking right now, and it's hard on one side for established cinematographers and DPs to, years and years of being in film school to overcome this, and it's probably where you'll get some resistance or friction between them and the thing. But the more you as a marketer and an advertiser knows about what works and doesn't work, the better your end result is going to be, and you'll not waste money on bad productions. The other good thing is in VR, since you're wearing a headset, you exactly know where you're looking. And that's the kind of heat maps, that's the kind of stuff of where you want to position your brand, where it's more effective. That's the kind of stuff that can be gotten out, given to your clients, can actually help. I mean, when you're designing a store, sometimes what they do is they have cameras and they map out heat points of where someone walked in, where the prime products were and stuff like that. Now you can do this in your ad in VR. Did the person walk into that room and did they look to the left where our product was? I don't think so. They seem to have just looked down, and then you could move that out there so your ad can actually go there. Besides that, exactly what were they looking at? If it was a sports clothing thing, was the gaze traveling down from the shoes up or up and down? That's the kind of data that you can actually gather and give to your client in the end. When it gets into storytelling, since you exactly know where the person is looking because your head is being tracked by the device, you can actually trigger out ongoing stories if you want to get creative with that. So a lot of things are there. And of course, the ethical question, now that you know where a person is watching, they need to know that they're being tracked probably, because it could go into an ethics issue. Again, this is for cinematographers and for building up a storyline. So this could be a virtual world. Now it looks like a beautifully shot scene, somewhere out on the beach. But guess what? It's completely computer generated. It's done in real time. Every pebble could be moved, every stone could be moved in there. And this is where game engines and the virtual world and the real world are melding. So your next productions can actually use these things to great effect. That's a little dark there, but the idea is virtual worlds are being built. And when we talk about stuff like no one's watching billboards anymore, of course it's true in the real world. In the virtual world, this could be a game, but it could also be a kind of a collaborative environment where people hang out. This is the next big trend that's happening, and Facebook is on it. So dynamic billboards and stuff like that could change is what you as a brand should probably be building to get to get people in there. To give you a brief primer, there's two kinds of VR. The typical VR is, in the dictionary, says you need to be able to interact with the world out there. But now there's something called cinematic VR, and that's done with cameras and with filmmaking to put you in a virtual environment. What VR is not is sticking 4 GoPros together. That's 360 video, according to me. And Apple had already patented a term for that back in the 1990s. They called it QuickTime VR. It was panoramic video, where you used your mouse and you looked at 360 videos of photographs, and it was panoramic photography. What people who are doing right now is sticking 4 GoPros together and putting that same thing on the insides of a sphere. So knowing the difference, knowing what 360 video is and what VR is in cinematic, so 3D 360 will actually give you depth. So I know when I put the headset on, there's a monitor in front of me, there's the first row of seats, and it's going further, in the back. And that's what gives you a sense of kind of presence. It's harder to shoot, but the ones who do it are the ones you should be talking to. So if you're actually going out and giving out a project, ask them, are they doing 3D 360 video or are they doing 360 video? And there's a big difference with calling it VR. 3 key points that I talk to ad filmmakers so that they should know is, one is build for interaction. meaning if you're making a project, try to make it hybrid where it's video as well as it can be interacted with, because what's happening is right now there's people like IMAX. IMAX is, you know, IMAX is IMAX. So I call about, show, don't tell. The top video, if you look at it, I call it telling. It's like something what Etihad did. So yeah, it's a 360 video, and then there's little arrows showing you our seats are this wide and this and that. Versus, let's play the second video. Versus something like, this is what I'd call a VR video.
This year's ITB, the world's leading travel trade show, visitors experienced Lufthansa like never before. They were inside a movie in 360 degrees.
Cheers.
With a head-mounted display, visitors became guests on a virtual journey.
Hello.
Our goal? We wanted them to have fun while fully immersed in Lufthansa's products and travel destinations. With a controller in their hand, participants could see and use virtual objects. And they used them a lot. But visitors didn't just fly. In the middle of a busy day at the trade show, they relaxed at a San Francisco beach. When they came back from their virtual holiday, we gave visitors a printed San Francisco postcard. But we didn't stop there. Did you notice the flight attendant in the movie? Well, he was at the booth and personally handed visitors the postcards. They were quite surprised. Over 1,000 postcards were sent to friends and family in 30 countries worldwide. For the first time at a trade show, it was possible to experience the seats and the actual service on board. Over 2,000 amazed visitors went on a virtual holiday. That's more than 5 fully booked flights on a 747-8.
So
3-spin,
as far as
innovation applied.
As far as brand activation goes, this is probably what I would see effective use of VR. If you build to scale, if you build the VR world to scale, you could actually have a really, kind of like a great experience for the visitor or for the viewer. Because if you build, let's say, a seat of an aircraft to the actual scale that is there, you could actually put a physical one in location. And when they put the headset on and they sit down, they will be sitting down in VR, and they will be actually feeling the real seat. So if it goes for like real estates or for for walkthroughs and stuff like that, build to scale. If it's a fantasy world you're building, make sure everything matches. Like in The Hobbit, you do not want real sized tables and chairs. If it's the real world and you're giving out a project to someone to recreate, like let's say an apartment, then make sure they're building it to scale, because you have the option of actually doing an on-ground activation with it that fits in. So room scale VR with good story and agency, how we do, and an agency of walking around is equal to presence.
Today we're going to show you an exciting new technology that could fundamentally change the way that people will communicate in the future. Imagine being able to virtually teleport from one space to another in real time. Hey Sergio, how does it feel like to be holoported?
It feels great to be holoported.
So if Sergio is to wear his HoloLens device, and I'm going to wear mine, we can see each other in full 3D in real time. We can interact and communicate as if we're co-present. Sergio, can you walk around my space? Can you walk behind this chair? So we're doing everything to give the impression that Sergio and I are present in the same space. Sergio, let's just do a high five.
It's just a quick video. It's kind of drags on, but where we're heading with VR is like the new term is XR. So, if you really want to go out and throw terminology around now, it's called XR, because we have VR, we have AR, which is augmented reality. Then we had someone come up with blended reality. Microsoft comes up with, holo reality. So finally the term has become XR, but I just find it a little cheesy. I think VR is virtual. Anything else is augmented. So for me, when someone asks me to explain the difference between AR and VR, if I were to say this whole room, I'm creating it in VR, in virtual reality, it would mean I've created the 4 walls, the ceiling, the floor, and the chairs and the people in it, and I'm in VR. I take off the ceiling, the walls around me, and I have a camera image of the live world coming through, but the chairs are still there. That's augmented reality. So it's just as plain as that. But XR, what's happening with the HoloLens is you're going to start learning, the stories and the brand stories are going to get more exciting, because you can literally have in someone's room things happening around you. So Microsoft had a nice film where there's actually a murder mystery thing happening in your living room. The HoloLens actually scans the whole room, knows where objects are, and can put digital people or objects in situ. It can occlude it when needed if a chair is in the way. And they have this really nice murder mystery kind of thing in there, so you walk from your living room probably to your kitchen, and it's already mapped it. So you'll see a digital person out there saying, I don't care about you, or something like that. I don't like the guy behind you, and I'm going to kill him. And you turn around, and there is that person out there. So it's kind of freaky what you can do now with storytelling, with VR and AR. So digital surrogates, that's what I think of people. When you talk about, like things like Foursquare and stuff like that, where you check in and you get points and credits. No, the future is going to be, I'm sitting at home, you probably are in real life at a place which is Foursquare enabled, and I digitally check in. You can actually see me with these glasses. The glasses are getting smaller and smaller and more lightweight every day. So we're talking like 4 or 5 years, and you probably can interact with a digital surrogate of a person in a place. The future of cinemas is what I'd like to show you before we wrap up. So I think you get the idea. The void is an actual place that's already there. And what I believe is going to happen with cinemas is it's going to be an empty room without these chairs. You're going to get simple props out here like a pillar and stuff like that. And the visuals are going to be generated by computer systems. It will be a film. How you can use such a film for your brand, like let's say there's a car or something in there that you are sponsoring in this new kind of film, is what people can actually interact with. So they could pick up something, they could start something up there, and that's a whole different level of engagement. So this entertainment's coming out, and how you as a marketer can use it to drive brand engagement is completely up to you right now, but it's happening. It's there. The void is one. It's going to be worldwide. There's many of them coming up like that because they're realizing normal cinema is not working. People are not really coming, with Netflix and with all these things happening out there. So there are no experts. Everyone is still learning. Whoever comes up and says they're a guru, not yet. The guru phase is not there yet in VR. People like, for example, BBDO in New York have got these sand pits that they're actually encouraging the people in there to start experimenting, to play around with things and come up with ideas. And that's probably what should be happening out out here in India. A brief roll of some of the credits that I've done. So I create things like media labs and collaborative environments. I've done it for the government of Singapore. That one's for the government of Abu Dhabi. Some workshops I've done with Panasonic R&D labs in Singapore when they're designing a new 3D camera, and that one is for Google MENA. So 40 of the creative heads of BBDO and JWT turned up, and they were like transitioning now to VR. So there is a movement happening everywhere, definitely in India, as I saw. And that's my thing. Thank you.